Hello to everyone, this is Vishal and again on the same tutorial as we working on that's a clean architecture and on my previous tutorials as we discussed how we can interact with these different kind of layers and how we can make our MVVM as in our separations of layers. So that's the thing we have to implement and I will provide you the more tutorials related to the basics of these things. As we discussed the presentation, domain and data, and that we have done with the mutable live data and with the view model. Because of I've seen some questions that how the Rxjava will work with this kind of layer. So I skipped the device layer today and just showing to you first how to work with the Rxjava with your three kind of layers. And then we have to move for the device, the fourth layer. That is not actually the layer, that is just for to separate your files. That means related to your network or connections and also be your shared preferences. So likewise that because of we have to make our project more clean. It depends, either you put it into the layers or you put it or you have to work with directly with the MVVM. Because of on my first tutorial I discussed that um, MVVM also be the pure architecture, but how we can put it in the layers and how we can use these stuffs just like your Bob's architecture, and we have to fulfillment that yeah, these kind of stuffs be working. That means your strict dependency rule be working. And if you go over the bottom layer and how we can integrate these three layers, that means presentation to be the domain and domain be to data. And as on last tutorials we discussed how the presentations we can get access your domain and data, and how the domain we interact with the data. Because of the last layer is just for making a business logics. And as I um, described you on the last time, if you have any data just like related to your previous projects, you just put it into the data layer and just make the things. And because of it is a separate, you just call the things on your domain layer and you have to implement those necessary stuffs if there is a requirement of the domain. Otherwise you can get access that uh, by the presentation view model. So that means you can either you can work with the work that is related to your view model to data layer, in your presentation to data layer we can say, or we can say that you model to your repositories directly. Or if you have a lot of work be there, so you make it more clean, you just put all the interfaces inside your domain layer. That should also be the interface adapter, and then communicate to each and everything with the implementation of that. So data layer is will include the POSO and lot of stuff, as we say the business logic layer. This is, and we have to work with the repository, we have to work with the models and the domain layers, whatever be that is, you have to work with the domain layer where we have a interactor, interfaces, interface implementations. So a lot of stuffs be there. I will describe you more about the domain layer in my coming sessions, that is on the deep. But today I have to work with Rxjava with your repository and your presentation layer. So and as discussed, the device layer be your connectivity managers and your shared preferences. The other other work beyond that, that is just for the separation. That means you have to put your data be there, and a lot of things we have to work. And as we discussed and understand what will be the use cases, and in this layer you can work with the use cases where you have to call back the things. So today I'm just showing to you how the use case, I mean that is the interface we work, because of exactly the use case meaning be your callbacks. But I'm not calling any data be here, I'm just using the interfaces so can we can interact with the your presentation. So that's be our top layer. So in on my practical with async task, if you go with my previous tutorials where we have a employee data, employee record we have, and we have a two models that's related to the employee, and we know that how we the retrofit and Rxjava calling. So I'm using that model again, but if you want to know about more deep related to the retrofit and Rxjava, you have to work with my that tutorial and first understand the retrofit Rxjava calling, because of I am using the same structure be here, and I started from the retrofit calling directly. So here I have a data that is related to that is the backend on PHP side. That's our first name and last name. So these things I have to show on the recycler view with the help of Rxjava in our separation of layers. So that's we discuss, and then we go for more deep on my coming sessions. So let us started on the Android Studio, or let's see the example of the clean architecture that is related to Rxjava. So let's discuss it in Android Studio. Here we have employee response and employee. These two poser classes. So if you see the structure of these layers, so we have a data layer and domain and presentation as we discussed on my previous two tutorials, and these data layers be related to our business logics, and that be the model employee and employee responses we have. And under that we have a remote in which we have a API service and retro class. So those are watching first time this tutorial, you have to work with my previous clean architecture and also be Rxjava with retrofit. I'm using the same tutorial material on this business logic where we have a employee records, how we make a pozo of employee and employee responses, that all description be there. So you have to first work with that, then we go my previous tutorial of the clean architecture, then study this. So here we have our API service, you know well, and this API service we have to get from the first JSON that is on my local PHP WAMP, and this is the observable where we get the employee response as we have a employee response data. So I'm just using with this. So here we simple observable. I'm not using any mutable live data at this time. So let us start it with the employee repository. So our work is start from this on the business logic repositories. So in this repository, what we have to do first, we have to work with the API service. So our API service with this, and we have one more thing, that is a observable field. So that means that observable be we have to get back things as an employee response and employee response observable, and here you have just make a getter for this, a very simple, and that getter be your employee. Okay, and here you can see that this is your API service, and that API service be your retro class, and that retro class you will achieve that get API service. And this is your employee response observable, so we have to achieve this observable using the get employee response. Because of that observable be we can fetch it. So this is very simple repository, that means we can get access from the your server. So that's the things we implement. So this layer be separate, that means here we have only a business logic that be completed, nothing else. So our data layer be completely or fully worked, and then we just make a domain now. So if you have a complicated architecture, I'm just showing to you that how we can interact on my previous tutorial, then you work with this domain layer where you need a lot of stuffs on your use cases. That means your interfaces, your callbacks methods, where we have a lot of stuffs and the complexities in your structure. Otherwise, you can call that repository directly on your view model. So just showing to you how we can, first I'm showing to you how we can interact with the simple interface, and then I will describe you the on success on failure description on my next tutorial of the Rxjava with clean. So here, if I'm using the interface, that's be your callback. That means it worked by different team. So he said that this is our interface and that's be our callback. And here what we do, we just need a data as an observable of imply. Either you have imply responses be as an a form of layers. So that means you can work with your imply response from that layer, or either you can make a different model if your team is working separately. So that means you can make your model be here under the domain just to identify the things. But otherwise that's good if you interact with that imply responses, because that data be fetch on that. So this is our imply response and we have to call back response be here. So this is not a util observable, this is a IO reactive. Okay, so that we have to implement. So that is our a separate layer in which we can also be get the on success or on failure, but I'm using just simple observable first, then we'll show you how we can do that. And now we have to work with the implementation of callback implementation, whereon we have worked the last time, and here you can implement whatever be your requirements. So that is your callback interface, and alt enter you have to implement the methods be here. So that means here, that is the separate layer, we have to interact as in a domain to data. So here we have to call that particular repository, and that repository be our employee. What's the name of that employee repository? Okay, so here we can see that this is our employee repository. So here we have to call that particular. So first we have to create a constructor for this callback implementation. So, and that callback implementations be here simple. And here we can fetch our data of the callback responses. So that means we have to make one more field that is related to your observable. So here, but it's good if you put it on the on success, but just for description I'm using observable, and that's your imply response observable. Okay, and in this is your imply response. uh, you can first call this imply repository is equals to new imply repository, and that repository be your imply observable be your imply repository dot get imply, and here you have to return that imply observable. So everything will be fit. We have to interact with domain to data. Now this implementations be work with our view models. So let us start it with the model. View model be here. So on our presentation, or we have a presenter, we have a view model. So here I am using the imply view model. We extends the view model, and also I will describe you the data binding on the next tutorial by these all stuffs on our adapter. I'm using the simple today just for learn the things, because of first you clear your base, your funda, then we go for the other processes. So this is our imply and imply view model, everything we fit. So here we have to interact with our presenter to the domain layer. So we have to get access, call back implementation, call back, and under this imply view model we have to get interact with this kind of um, values. So here you make a public, because of you have to get access the observable. So whenever you interact with this, that means you have to get data on your imply view model. And in this, what it's showing to me, it is not that kind of observable. It is a IO. Okay, so everything be fit, and here you can call back a new callback implementation, and you have to get access that imply response be here. So that means you can fetch this result as in the callback dot callback response, so we can get interact with that of view model. We just call this view model and get access. Very simple. So that be the layer which interact with our domain and data interactions. Okay, because of in our view model we have to update the models, everything be there. So last be our view. On this view what we have to do, we have to show the recycler. So the recycler, what we need a package, and in which we need a adapter. So this is, we have to put all the adapters on the presentation, as we discussed on my first tutorial that everything should be on presentation layer. So here we have a custom adapter, and I already make many times that adapter on the both the ways. One is the data binding and other is without data binding approaches. So here you have to extend the recycler view. Okay, just I'm making a very simple, don't use this. First you have to make a class inside that. So this is your class custom view, and that extends your recycler view dot view holder. And here what you have to do, you just alt enter and create the super, and that means your adapter, we have to extend that recycler view dot adapter. Under that we need a custom view. Okay, and then it say that we have to implement some methods, so that means we have to work with this. So here we have a inner layer. In that, either you can put the data bindings. I'm not using data binding at the first time. I will make it on the next tutorial how these all the stuffs you working with the data binding. That is also be important. So here this is your first name, this is your last name. We have to make with this on our custom adapter. So here what we needed, we needed a kind of list because of we have to work with employee record. So here we have a list of employee. Okay, so by this we can fetch our data, and I need a private context, that is the context. And here we have to generate a constructor for this using both the values. Okay, so that's our custom adapter constructor be ready. And now we have to work with the that class on inflator. So that means in this, on create view holder, we have to work with the view. Later on we can make a class on the data binding and then put it the same things be here. So here we have a layout inflator dot from, and that from we work with the if you go with this view group, you make it as a parent, and this is your position. So you can say that the parent dot get context, and that context be your inflat r dot layout, sorry, it is r dot layout dot or enter inner layer. So that means you have to inflate that kind of inner layer. Okay, and then you have to make it parent, and that is your false. Okay, uh, just, and here you have to return that kind of new custom view, that's your view. Okay, so that's be the thing. And here you have to get count the things be here, that means you need a implies. So implies dot size, that means get item count for the size. Here everything is set, and now we have to get interact with the text views be here. So what to do, you can interact with the text views. This is the old approach actually. I don't want to use this, but just for to show you how the adapter works. Otherwise on my next tutorial you will see these all stuffs we are as an data binding techniques that is more good. So this is your first name, this is your last name, and in which we have to call the things as an your first name be your text view, and this is your item view dot find view by id, that is your r dot id dot first name, and the same thing I copy paste it, that is for the last name, and the last name be your last name. Okay, and that things we you work with the holder here. So here I'm making as a holder, and this is the position. So on the bind view holder, what we have to do, that means you have to bind this holder. So that means your holder dot, as I describe you on my first tutorial, do not work with this bind view holder. Any calculations you never work in clean architecture. If you work with the clean architecture, then that means calculations be needed on your repository. Okay, I will describe you that thing also on my coming session, in which we will do some calculations, and that calculations directly reflect. So we just pass the things on the bind view holder. So that is the basic principle of learning of the clean architecture. Okay, that's very important. So here you can say that holder dot first name dot set text, and that text be your values of whatever you wanted. That means if you want any values, so that means related to your response array list, so that means your implies, and that your get position dot get first name, and here you can do with the last name also. Okay, and if you work with any calculation like stuffs that you have to multiply the things with the names on the other calculation, so that means your clean architecture be wrong, because of that is not a Bob architecture. That's very important. Okay, so this is a simple on bind view holder be here. We just bind it either the like this, because of this is the old approach, either or you have to use the data bindings. I will describe you how to work with the data bindings, this stuffs. And otherwise I already uploaded the tutorial in which I have make a separations how we work with both kind of adapters with here. Okay, so our custom adapter be ready. Now we have to go for the view. On the view, in the main activity, we have a presenter already, and on as we discussed on the first tutorial, on that presenter we have to call this view model, because of our working with only the view model approaches be here. So here we have a private imply view model, because of our view we work with our models. Okay, and here we need a custom adapter. So this is imply view model as in a new imply view model. So that means our area of separations be here. That means we have an imply view model, and that we imply view models we can get it as an observable. So how we can get that as an observable? You can see that imply view model dot observable dot. So here you can see that we have a subscribe, and we have observe on. So these things be ready for us. So that means that annotations from the repository to our view, that is an important how it works. So that is your Android schedulers dot main thread dot subscribe on, that is schedulers .io. I have uploaded many tutorials of Rxjava, so you can learn how we can implement these things. If you want to add two lists be there, that means two different lists on the composite ways, that I recently uploaded the tutorials in which you can put both the things uh, on your recycler view like that. Okay, so here you can see that your implied response be your values. Okay, so here you have to put your custom adapter, and that custom adapter be your custom adapter new custom adapter, and here we have our values be like that. So that means we need a implied response, so that means your value dot get implies comma main activity dot this. That means you can fetch the values of list be here, and here we have to put a recycler view, so that means recycler view be here, and recycler view. If you're using the binding, you can directly call that recycler view be here. That is our recycler view, and we need some stuffs. That means a recycler view be you're related to uh, that means your layout for the recycler view and other stuff you have to put with this recycler view for the layouts. So I'm using the old one. All the stuffs be here related to this. So we have some recycler view on my previous examples. So here what to do, this is your recycler view, fix size, recycler view layout manager, and that's set layout manager. Very simple. And if you don't know about that, you just go my previous tutorials because we need some recycler view values. You just put it the recycler view dot set adapter as a custom adapter. So everything is ready. Now we have to run this and see what happened. So that's very easy because of here what we did. This is our presentation layer. This is our domain. This is our data. So that already be built up to repository. Very easy, in which we have emit the data but never get access because of we want to observe it on the presentation. Easy. And if you have a complexity, you have to put all the interfaces be under the domain where we have to implement. Otherwise you can directly approach to this if you have very simple architecture. Okay, and here you can do that the presentation, and in the presentation we have adapter, presenter, view model, all this stuff related to the view. And we have to work with that view model interact with at this time with the domain, and that view model we work with our main activity, that is our view. Okay, so let's see. Okay. So this is our click, and you can see that all the data be here on the John and the Peter, Joe Smith John. So that's be our here implies record. So that's very easy to work with this kind of stuff. And in next tutorial, I will show to you how the data bind with your adapter with these layers, and also we can use the session managers if you're working with that, and you put the things within on your device layer. So a lot of stuffs in your clean architecture you just follow, and I will make more videos on that. And I will make a small project as in a budget app, so you can learn the things how we can interact with like a small application. Okay, so thank you so much for the day, and we'll see you on the next tutorial. Thank you so much.